Your Highness Claude, can't you just fall like a normal person? Emily crouched on the garden's cobblestone path, a medical kit slung over her shoulder, staring at the Empire's third prince sprawled on the ground. His black boots had skidded on a patch of moss, sending him backward in an oddly graceful tumble, but those deep blue eyes locked onto her, lips pressed into a thin line. Your Highness, you slept on your own, no one pushed you. Emily sighed. She was just a lowly court physician, on garden duty today, and of course she'd run into this notoriously difficult prince. Kneeling on one knee, she reached to examine his twisted ankle, but the moment her fingertips brushed the leather of his boot, Claude let out a muffled groan. "Hurts," he muttered, his voice low and threaded with suppressed anger. Emily looked up to see fine sweat beading on his pale forehead, his impossibly handsome face taut as stone. She almost laughed. This prince was hailed as the Empire's sword on the battlefield, said to have single-handedly taken down an entire rebel squad, and now he was laid low by a patch of moss. "What are you laughing at?" Claude's gaze sharpened. "If you dare breathe a word of this, I'll transfer you to the northern frontier to treat wolves." Emily stifled her laugh at once, quickly rolling up his pant leg. His pale calf was exposed, the ankle already swollen into a purplish lump. She pressed it gently, and Claude let out another muffled groan, but this time he bit his lip hard and didn't cry out again. "Your Highness, this injury needs proper treatment, at least 3 days of no walking." Emily stood up, brushing dust off her skirt. "I'll have someone bring a stretcher for you." "No need." Claude suddenly grabbed her wrist with surprising force. "You carry me back." "What?" Emily thought she'd misheard. "I said you carry me back." Claude repeated the words slowly, a faint, elusive glint of cunning flickering across his stern face. "You should take full responsibility for my ankle." "But your Highness, I'm a physician, not a porter." Emily tried to pull her hand free, but Claude only tightened his grip. "You're a physician, what if your poor skills cause a secondary injury?" He argued with unshakable logic. "If I worsen the sprain by walking, who's accountable?" Emily stared at him dumbfounded. What kind of twisted reasoning was this? But Claude was already trying to stand, leaning on a nearby stone pillar, hopping on one foot and wobbling dangerously. On instinct, Emily reached out to support his waist, and he pulled her into an embrace, crashing against his chest. "All right, then, like this." Claude draped his arm over her shoulder, nearly hanging half his weight on her. "Let's go, physician miss." And so they hobbled across the entire garden in the most awkward manner imaginable. Passing maidservants averted their eyes, but Emily could clearly see their shoulders shaking with suppressed laughter. The guards were even more brazen, turning away to pretend they were watching birds on the castle walls. "Your Highness, can't you just find someone else to carry you? I'm only 20, weighing less than 100 pounds, and you're a 6-foot-tall man. Are you trying to crush me?" Emily panted, struggling for breath. Claude glanced down at her, and a rare flicker of amusement danced in his blue eyes. "What's the fear? If I crush you, I'll take responsibility." "I don't want your responsibility." Emily gritted her teeth. They finally reached the entrance to his chambers when Claude suddenly stopped. "What now?" Emily looked up to see his expression turn cold again, his fingers tightening slightly. Ahead, a woman in a deep purple gown stood on the steps, holding a glass of wine, watching them with an enigmatic smile. It was Princess Sophia, Claude's elder sister, and the most unpredictable person in the entire royal family. "Oh my, what's this?" Sophia descended gracefully, the red wine swaying in her glass. "Our empire's battlefield general, being carried around by a little physician. Claude, don't you think you should reconsider your image?" Claude said nothing, but Emily felt his arm on her shoulder stiffen for a moment. Her heart sank. She knew a little about the strained relationship between these siblings. Sophia had long coveted the throne, and Claude was her biggest obstacle. "Your Highness sprained his ankle," Emily quickly explained. "I was just taking him back for treatment." "Sprained?" Sophia raised an eyebrow, her smile deepening. "How?" "He slept on some moss in the garden," Emily answered honestly. The moment the words left her mouth, Sophia burst into a tinkling laugh, so light yet chilling that it sent a shiver down Emily's spine. She saw Claude's face turn icy, his blue eyes frozen over. "Interesting." Sophia dabbed at her eyes elegantly. "Claude, you're regressing with each passing day. Looking at you now, how can I rest assured in trusting the frontier legions to you? Tomorrow's council will discuss it. What do you think they'll say when they see a prince who needs help walking?" Claude was silent for a few seconds, then spoke, his voice eerily calm. "Sister, whether I can walk and whether I can fight are two different things." Sophia chuckled softly and turned to leave, but not before casting a meaningful glance at Emily. "Take good care of my brother, physician miss. He's the Empire's treasure now." Once she was gone, Claude suddenly let his weight drop, leaning heavily on Emily and nearly knocking her off balance. "Hey! What is this nonsense?" Emily fumed. "Shut up. Let me lean for a moment." Claude's voice was low, carrying a weariness she'd never heard before. She froze. For some reason, she sensed a subtle fragility in this prince, usually so aloof and untouchable. She guided him into his chambers, settled him on the couch, and turned to fetch the medical kit. Just as she reached the door, Claude muttered something cryptic. "Do you think a crippled prince still has a right to be crown heir?" Emily turned back to see him staring at his swollen ankle, his expression unreadable. A sudden thought struck her. Had that fall really been an accident? She didn't answer, hurrying out to get the kit, but her mind churned with turmoil. For the next 3 days, Emily visited Claude's chambers daily to change his bandages. It was work fit for a junior physician, but Claude insisted on her, and she couldn't refuse. By the 3rd day, he was clearly better. The swelling had gone down, and he could limp around the room. "But why did you fall in the garden again today?" Emily asked as she applied the dressing, rolling her eyes. "I heard you tumbled down the steps. Are you practicing some new stunt?" Claude sat on the couch, coffee cup in hand, his expression nonchalant. "An accident. An accident, my foot. 3 falls in a month. Do you take me for a fool?" Emily pressed hard on his ankle, making him wince and nearly spill his coffee. "What are you really after?" She met his gaze, her eyes probing. Claude was silent for a moment before speaking softly. "I need an excuse to delay the Frontier Legion appointment in the council." "Delay?" Emily blinked. "Why?" "Because I don't want to be sent to the frontier." Claude set down his cup, his gaze heavy, fixed on the window where the Empire's border lay. "If I go there, I won't be back for at least 3 years." and Sophia will have the capital cleaned out in my absence. I'd return to an empty shell. Emily's mouth fell open as realization dawned. So you're acting? Hurting yourself on purpose to seem unfit to lead? Smart. Claude gave her an approving look. But it's not enough. I need a more perfect persona. Someone pitiable, yet no threat. Emily felt herself being drawn into a whirlpool she had no business in, instinctively stepping back. Your Highness, you shouldn't be telling me this. But do you think Sophia will let you off? Claude reached out and grabbed the hand holding her medicine bottle, his blue eyes deep as the ocean. You're already involved from the moment you carried me. Emily's hand trembled. She glanced out the window. The setting sun gilded the fountain in the garden, turning each droplet to gold. Everything seemed so peaceful, but the undercurrents were suffocating. She took a deep breath, about to speak, when hurried footsteps echoed from outside. The chamber door burst open, and Sophia strode in with 2 guards, a triumphant smile on her face. Claude, father wants you at tomorrow morning's council personally. She tossed a letter onto the table. If you still can't stand, no problem, they'll bring a wheelchair. You can't claim your hands are broken too, can you? Sophia smirked. Claude's face turned ashen. Emily saw his hand grip the armrest of the couch, veins bulging. She knew this war without swords had reached its tipping point. And here she was, caught between them, like someone on the edge of a cliff, one misstep from shattering. After Sophia left, Claude was silent for a long time. Emily watched him, his head bowed, the veins on his hands slowly fading, replaced by an almost ruthless calm. Your Highness, are you really going to the council tomorrow? Emily asked cautiously. Claude looked up, his eyes free of exhaustion or weakness, only a steadfastness that sent chills down her spine. Yes, of course. He stood up straight, as if his ankle were fine. Since they want a show, I'll give them a big one. Emily stared at him, realizing this man held too many secrets, each one a ticking bomb. She opened her mouth, but closed it again. She knew that in this power struggle, she was just a small player. All she could do was stand behind Claude and watch him walk into a battlefield that wasn't hers. But as she turned to leave, Claude called out to her. Emily. She stopped, not looking back. Come with me tomorrow. His voice came from behind, soft but striking a chord in her heart she'd never noticed before. Why? She asked. Claude paused for 2 seconds, then whispered, because you're the only woman in the Empire who's ever carried me. Emily's ears burned. She fled the chamber, practically running down the hall until she reached the end, leaning against the wall to catch her breath. The scent of cedar still clung to the air, Claude's scent. Her heart pounded like it might burst from her chest. No, no, no. She slapped her cheeks, trying to banish his face from her mind. She was here to work, not to fall in love, and certainly not to dive into some court conspiracy. But the next morning, she still showed up at the side door of the palace hall on time, in her plain physician's robe, clutching her medical kit. When Claude saw her, a faint smile curved his lips, as if he'd known she'd come. The hall doors opened, and the herald's voice rang out, presenting His Highness, the 3rd Prince Claude. Claude took a deep breath, leaning on a cane, and stepped inside. Emily followed, head down, trying to blend into the shadows. But she knew that the moment she crossed that threshold, she was no longer the small, uninvolved physician. She looked up and saw the old emperor on the throne, scrutinizing Claude with a piercing gaze. Sophia stood nearby, clutching a thick file, a triumphant smile fixed on her face. The show had only just begun.